Welcome to the clubhouse, everyone. We're going to be taking questions later for Eddie after we get done breaking down. He just finished watching the Claressa Shields fight. So Eddie, give us your, I know it was brief and quick, so give us your update on that.
Yeah, I just watched the fight, and I think if you want to find out exactly what didn't happen, you could read the preview of the fight in the New York Times, where they have a writer. And the New York Times, for this article, gets the Roger Mayweather Don't Know Shit About Boxing award, because it's this whole long story about why isn't Claressa Shields getting more TV exposure. She had to do her own pay-per-view, and it's because of sexism, which I certainly think is a key factor. But they're trying to give a portrait of Claressa Shields, and they call her like Mary Poppins, but with a killer right cross. Look, she does not have a killer right cross. She has a right cross. She has 11 fights, 11 wins, and only 2 knockouts and only a couple of knockdowns. She fought DeCaire, who she's bigger than. She went down to 154 to fight DeCaire, who's older, and she didn't get any knockdowns. Now, you could complain that, well, women's boxing is forced to have, even in title fights, 10 two-minute rounds. And a lot of women want it to be just like men's boxing, 3-minute rounds, 12 rounds for title fights, so forth. You can argue that, and I'm sure that would make a difference. But if you watch this fight, yeah, it was 100% for Claressa Shields. She got a shutout decision win, but she did not work the body, and it's a very basic in boxing. You want to get knockouts later in the fight. Work the body. When you work the body, eventually the hands come down, and it will tire out your opponent, weaken your opponent, and later on in the fight, when you're fighting somebody who's good, and DeCaire for that weight class is good. She had a bunch of belts. She was unbeaten. You have to break her down. You just can't go in and load up. There was a lot. If you watch that fight, there was a lot of loading up with the right hand by Claressa Shields. DeCaire is a southpaw, so you expect her to really rely on the right hand as a power punch. But some of it was really obvious. DeCaire was bouncing around and jumping around and holding a lot, and it looked like trying to survive. Her punch output was very, very low. But there were even times that Claressa Shields stood on the ropes with her back to the ropes and didn't move and wanted to fight that way. She should have been working more to cut off the ring, work the body, build up to get a knockout. But I don't think she has that explosive power. Right. And that is a real problem for her. I'm not saying that means she shouldn't be on a major TV. Just saying, in assessing this fight, even though she has a good trainer in John David Jackson, she has a lot of work to do. And the announcers, frankly, didn't help. At the end of the fight, they said, well, it's the end of this welterweight fight. Well, it was a super welterweight fight. Come on, you're supposed to know these things in boxing. There's an important difference there. And they were talking about how wonderful and great she was, and not much real analysis of what was going on in the ring in what was clearly a one-sided fight. So she still has work to do. And as far as sexism keeping her off of the TV networks, I think that's obviously a factor. Women's boxing in the Olympics was the last sport in all of the Summer Olympics to have a women's division. Even wrestling by 2004 brought in women. Boxing was the last sport. So there's a lot of that in boxing. But I wonder if there are some other factors that I really don't know about. Maybe behind the scenes things. How much money does she want? Does everybody get along with her promoter, Dimitri Salita? Her manager, Mark Taffet, used to run HBO pay-per-view, so he has a lot of connections. So and everybody in boxing knows Dimitri. He was a fighter for a long time. So why is she not getting on TV? The pandemic made it worse. She was supposed to fight DeCaire last year. It was scheduled for Showtime, and that got postponed because of the pandemic, which, everybody was getting postponed. But when they decided they could hold the fight, Showtime wasn't interested, and they told the New York, Stephen Espinosa told the New York Times this generic statement of, well, we had to cut back our boxing schedule, all this kind of stuff. Okay, but I haven't been real impressed with the fights that have been on Showtime, and here was one that could have been properly promoted, where it's another title unification fight, and she would be going to get undisputed titles in 2 different weight classes. Now, yes, the talent pool is much thinner at this point in women's boxing than in men's boxing, but there are a lot of ways they could have promoted this fight.
They did zero promotion. I didn't even know she was fighting until I got on Twitter and saw a thing with her promo, and that was it. And that was on Friday night for weigh-ins.
Right, and that's because they didn't have the PR power of the bigger networks. She's been on Showtime before. She's been on DAZN. When you're on networks like that, they have PR departments. And I know, because I get these press releases, you get a zillion in one of these press releases, an announcement, and a lot of stuff is junk. But I also get them from Dimitri Slita's promotional company, and from other sources too. But I don't think as many people get it from Salita Promotions doing an independent pay-per-view. And I don't think this pay-per-view did very well at all, which is unfortunate.
I doubt it did anything. I mean, I doubt she cleared 100,000 buys.
Right. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure to put her back on, because look, you could argue, well, that the 10 rounds of 2 minutes each hurts the ability of a fighter to build up to knock out your opponent. But there are other women's fighters that have a lot more knockdowns and knockouts under that same controversial setup.
Right.
With the 10 2-minute rounds. So the question is, how much power does she have? Really?
She doesn't have much power. This is the thing. Everybody knows that, and they're trying to. Yes, she's a good boxer. She's a diamond in the rough. I look at Claressa like as a diamond in the rough. In a couple years, if she keeps going, she will, maybe correct a lot of her bad habits. But I think a lot of it has to do with her attitude, her professional demeanor ringside. And I think when fans look at that, they don't like her. Fans just don't like her. And they're trying to make Claressa likable. And I don't think she really is likable. And that's just based on her own antics. It doesn't have anything to do with her boxing ability. It's just her personality and the way that she carries herself. And I think if she was a little more humble, instead of trying to be like a female Deontay Wilder, she might have more fans that like her. But you don't even humble yourself. It's hard to like somebody who's talking shit and you can't even knock somebody out.
Yeah, this greatest woman of all time stuff.
Yeah, come on,
does
now.
make her a heel.
Come on, that's
but then they put on Adrian Broner all the time, who people don't like, and frankly is not an A-level fighter.
About it, Eddie, that is the sexist part about it. As long as a woman is calling herself the greatest woman of all times and out there talking shit about herself, they don't want to hear that. They want the woman to be humble. Like I just said, I'm kind of caught up in that too. But I never liked Adrian Broner. So I don't like cocky fighters. That's just my personality. That's just the way I am. So I don't know. I think it is part sexism. It's a melting pot of everything.
Yeah. And there was also that incident at one of the fights where her brother attacked an elderly trainer and put him in the hospital. I actually didn't follow up, find out what came after that.
They settled. I think they settled out of court. They were going to get sued or something, and they settled.
Right, but that also hurt her reputation.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know. I think there might be some other stuff going on behind the scenes. It's not as well known. On the other hand, a lot of these promoters that the networks put on and have put on for years have not exactly been sunshine and roses to deal with.
Right.
Don King and his AA got fights on all the time. And, you know, Bob Arum is another very difficult one to deal with. Most of these promoters are very difficult to deal with. So that definitely plays a role. All these factors play a role.
Well, what did you think about the Canelo fight?
Was it a fight? I mean, it looked like a sparring session against a heavyweight. Canelo looked really good.
For Canelo.
Yeah, Canelo looked really good against the guy who just stood there. But on the other hand, if you look at, he had an easy opponent. Everybody knew that because this guy had been knocked out a couple of times of people that Canelo had beaten. But Canelo was still throwing some low blows in the 3 rounds that the thing lasted. Why do you have to do that?
Right.
That's just he's a very disciplined fighter with his punches. He doesn't waste a lot of punches. He's gotten much more economical and more powerful with his punches, with his footwork, with his punch selection over the years. Absolutely. So maybe this is just a gaffe, but he's going to have more of a difficult fight against Billy Joe Saunders. I think he's certainly going to win that fight. But Billy Joe Saunders is much more of a boxer and a mover. He's just not going to stand around and let you hit him. Right. But I think he'll beat Saunders. And I don't see anybody at 60 or 68 presently.
Nobody's touching Canelo right now.
Yeah. I would like to see him fight Jamal Charlo, but then you get into boxing's ridiculous politics. That Charlo is an Al Heyman fighter and is with Fox and Showtime. Canelo is an independent free agent, but he's not going to sign up with Heyman and PBC. Right. So you have these separate parallel universes going on. Even in science fiction, people cross over from the parallel universes.
So what do you think? What do you think, Al Heyman? What do you think it would take for Al Heyman to okay that fight for Charlo and Canelo?
For Canelo to be on the downside of his career, and he's on the upside of his career. For Canelo to be pretty much of a shot fighter. Right. And that ain't happening anytime soon. And PBC has been getting these minuscule ratings. There was an article in Ring Magazine recently that Fox is thinking about getting rid of PBC. The ratings that they recently had are just terrible.
They need to get rid of them. There's no point in holding on if it's dead weight.
And they're there's going to be a pay-per-view in April with headlined by Andy Ruiz Jr. against Chris Arreola.
That is the worst fight. When his cousin announced that shit on Facebook the other day, I said, dude, nobody wants to see this fight right here, but I'm still Team Destroyer all the way. Chris Arreola needs to stay retired.
Yeah, exactly. Took him many years to realize what he said for years, that he was going to train hard and lose the weight and basically not drink beer every night. Right. And he didn't do that till it was too late. You know, I could have been a contender, might have applied to him better. But why are you putting that on pay-per-view? You could say, okay, Ruiz is coming off of the loss to Joshua. He was out of shape, so he wants to get a relatively easy opponent. Exactly. Okay, but pay-per-view in this economy, this is suicide. Exactly. No, these networks, I'll tell you, this is why Triller is coming along, because these networks are incapable of learning the lessons of what happened to HBO boxing, which is over 2 years now. They're done, and that should have been the end of the pay-per-view model. Instead, they got out of the boxing business, and Fox and went into the pay-per-view business. And Showtime's been having these little pay-per-views, and
Mhm.
they're all disasters. So this Triller, this video sharing social network site, puts on 54-year-old Mike Tyson, who had quit in his previous two his
Right.
real fights against Danny Williams and Kevin McBride, against 51-year-old Roy Jones, who's getting knocked out all over the place and who is 20 years past his 15, 20 years past
Right.
his prime.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, remember when Tarver knocked him out? That was a real rapid downhill slide for Roy Jones Jr. And this is an exhibition, and they have Jake Paul, this YouTuber, and I think Jake and his brother Logan were wrestlers in the youth in a boxing match against Nate Robinson, a basketball player.
The worst fight.
So it's a clown show. It became a clown show. So now Triller's going to get Teofimo Lopez because Arum is El Cheapo, and Teofimo wants to leave Arum when he can and Top Rank when he can. So they overpaid to get Teofimo Lopez's next fight, which should be a relatively easy fight, a mandatory defense against Kambosos. And I think that they're going to put it on pay-per-view, and I think the way they're going to load it up, since it's not a particularly compelling fight, and few people know who his opponent is, they'll put on a bunch of clowns, YouTube celebrities, who knows what. And if things move in that direction, the whole structure of boxing could be changing, where it becoming much more of a spectacle with these combination cards, because the Tyson Roy Jones card had the highest number of pay-per-views in the United States by far, 1.6 million in 2020. And most of the pay-per-views with real fights were a bust. And even the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight didn't come close to that in the US on pay-per-view. So boxing is being completely mismanaged. It's sliding downhill.
It
On
is.
top of it, you have the recession. And the other factor that I pointed out over the summer, which may be changing a little bit now, but with all the deaths, every day we're reading about all these people dying and getting sick from the coronavirus. Is what you really want to do for your entertainment is sit there and watch two people beat each other up? It wasn't the best social conditions for
Right.
that. Now with the vaccine, we'll see. The cases are still going. The cases have not really declined that much. And maybe in a few months it will, and hopefully the sooner the better. But I think it's going to take longer than most people think. Actually, I think Dr. Fauci is right. People are going to have to be wearing masks into 2022.
Absolutely. I'm going to be wearing masks into 2024 because I don't trust you, most of you human beings out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that those are conditions that while sports in general, the ratings went down, I think boxing, with all the problems, the mismatches, not having the best fight the best, pay-per-view model, all of that tied together just created a situation where it was really hurt. And if you read some of the TV trade publications, they're saying that, yeah, sports in general got hurt by the pandemic, but boxing got hurt most of all.
Absolutely. Well, Eddie, it was a pleasure talking to you today. That's where we're going to leave it, right here on the Clubhouse. And I will see you next week, my brother.
Yes, and love to all the Clubhouse people. I hope to get on that soon, but the people running it to
Right. They need an
move to
Android.
get your Android and get your Windows desktop version, get all those things, because that's what all these other apps have. You don't have to go out and spend a lot of money to get a new device just to get an app. It's whatever device you have. If it's a more or less major platform, they bring it to you, and you have your choice. So.
Right. Well, we'll hope to build up our audience. We had a few people dropping into the Clubhouse, so We're going to keep it going, and we're going to see you guys next week. You can follow Eddie on Twitter and Patreon at
Patreon/Eddie Goldman and Twitter at NHB News.
Okay, Patreon/Eddie Goldman and on Twitter, NHB News.
And celebrate my 15th anniversary of my No Holds Barred podcast, which is quite an achievement since podcasting only started in 2005.
That's incredible. Congratulations, Eddie. That's an incredible achievement. 15 years podcasting. I've only been like doing this for a few weeks. So, yeah. All right, guys, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Angry Afro Radio and on Instagram at La Fight Goddess. That's LAF Fight Goddess. LAFIGHT Goddess. All right, everybody. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you. Be well.
All right. Peace out. All right. I ended the show.
Very good.
Yeah. So this room is no longer available.
Okay.
All right. So I'll see you next week. I'll keep you posted.
Yes, hopefully.
I'll get this edited down and send it out to you tomorrow.
Yeah, did you see that Cuomo is just about done? The Democratic heads of the state Senate and Assembly said time to go. He's pissed so many people off.
Right. He is the dumbest motherfucker on the planet for that. Like, dude, do you not understand that if you even thought about running for office, executive office in DC, like as vice president or whatever?
No, he said he'd never do that. And when he said that, I said, and his father said the same thing. And I said, there got to be something that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. Although his father was funnier, because when Mario Cuomo